All right, let's dive right in. We're about to break down a framework that really could, change the way you communicate, especially when things get tense. We're talking about Marshall Rosenberg's four-step model for nonviolent communication. It's a way to connect with the humanity in ourselves and in other people, even when it's the last thing you feel like doing. Let's start with an emotion we've all felt: anger. Marshall Rosenberg had this incredible insight. He said that anger itself isn't the problem. It's more like a fire alarm. The real fire, the thing that's actually causing the heat, is our thinking. All those thoughts of blame and judgment swirling around in our heads. And that's usually where our communication starts to break down. So what is this cost of conflict? Well, it's the price we pay every single day for miscommunication. Most of the time, we don't even realize that our normal, everyday way of talking can be filled with these little threats, judgments, and criticisms that just push people away instead of bringing them closer. Think about it. From a really young age, a lot of us learn to communicate in a way that's all about evaluation. We learn to label things as good or bad, right or wrong. And this violent communication, as Rosenberg called it, even when it's super subtle, just triggers defensiveness. It stops us from getting to what really matters, what we each actually need. But what if there was a different way, a whole new language we could learn? Well, that's exactly what psychologist Marshall Rosenberg gave us. It's called Nonviolent Communication, or NVC, and it's a super powerful tool for shifting our focus away from who's right and who's wrong and toward genuine empathy. So what is NVC really? At its core, it's a way to help us express ourselves honestly and listen to others with compassion. It's a method, for sure, with 4 clear steps, but it's also a mindset. It's all designed to help our natural compassion come through. And this is so important. The goal isn't to win an argument or to get the other person to do what you want. The whole point is connection. It's about building relationships where everyone's needs are seen as important and where we can work together to meet them. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to break down the first component, which is really the foundation for everything else. It all starts with one crucial skill: learning to observe without evaluating. Step 1 is all about sticking to the facts. What actually happened? The trick is to describe it without mixing in any of your opinions or judgments. I love this idea of thinking like a video camera. What would it have recorded? No commentary, no analysis, just the raw data. When you do this, you immediately lower the chances that the other person will hear criticism and throw up a wall. And this table just makes it so clear. An evaluation like "you're always late" is an attack, right? It's an exaggeration. The other person is probably going to argue with the word "always." But saying "you arrived 30 minutes after the meeting started today," well, that's a fact. You can't really argue with it. It creates a neutral ground to start a real conversation. Okay, so once we've got that clear, factual observation on the table, we can build on it with the next 3 parts. And this is where we really get to the heart of it all: feelings, needs, and requests. Step 2 is about identifying and expressing our feelings. But here's where it gets a little tricky. You have to ask yourself, am I sharing a real, honest-to-goodness feeling, or is it a thought wearing a feeling costume? And this slide just nails the difference. Words like betrayed or misunderstood aren't really feelings. They're interpretations of what the other person did, and they imply that they did something to you. But an actual feeling, like hurt or frustrated or lonely, that describes your internal state. It's about you. And when you own your feelings like that, it's so much easier for someone else to hear you without getting defensive. So where do these feelings come from? Now, this next idea is a total game changer. NVC suggests that other people's actions are just the stimulus for our feelings, but they're never the cause. The real cause of how we feel is our own met or unmet universal needs. These are the deep values that we all share as humans, things like connection, safety, respect, autonomy, which brings us to another huge distinction: needs versus strategies. A strategy is a specific action. I need you to do the dishes is a strategy, but the universal need underneath it might be a need for support or for order. When we connect on the level of needs, we suddenly open up a world of possibilities because there are tons of ways to meet a need for support. And that leads us to the final step, where we turn all this awareness into action. After we've shared our observation, our feeling, and our need, we make a clear, positive, and doable request. And this is the key. A request is not a demand. And the real test? You have to be genuinely okay with hearing the word no. When we make a demand, our goal is to win, to get our way. If we hear no, we might get mad or try to make the other person feel guilty. But with a request, our goal is connection. If we hear no, we get curious. We try to understand what's stopping the other person so we can work together to find a solution that works for both of us. So let's bring it all home. Let's go back to where we started, with anger. How can we use this 4-step model to take one of our most difficult emotions and actually use it to create connection? The process for dealing with anger and NVC is pretty straightforward. First, you just stop. You breathe. You don't react. Then you look at those judgmental thoughts that are fueling the fire. Next, and this is the crucial part, you connect with the unmet needs behind those thoughts. And only then do you express yourself clearly. Let's imagine a situation. You're furious, and this is the thought running through your head. It's just dripping with blame and judgment, right? This is the raw material. We're not trying to pretend this thought isn't there. We're just going to translate it. And here is the NVC translation. Look at how powerful that is. The anger is still there. I feel furious. But it's now connected to a universal need for respect and consideration. This doesn't attack anybody. It just invites the other person to understand what's going on inside of you, which makes it way more likely that they'll actually hear you. So let's just quickly recap the big takeaways here. First, NVC is all about shifting our communication from blame to connection. Second, what other people do is the stimulus, not the cause of our feelings. Our feelings come from our needs. And finally, when we focus on those needs, it just completely changes the game. It de-escalates conflict and helps us find solutions we never would have thought of. I'll leave you with this to think about. Pick one relationship in your life, maybe at work, maybe at home, that feels a little challenging right now. What do you think would change if, next time you feel that friction, you tried to listen, not for the blame, but for the universal need hiding underneath it all?